Clara's got away with words, stories flying just like birds. Guess who battled and won? Conversations and much fun. Tales from people with stories unique, secrets hidden and life's mystique. Every talk just makes you think, the show being over before you blink. Clara in conversation just for you.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to another podcast of Clara in Conversation with me, Claire Ford. Today on the podcast I am chatting with Susie McCabe, the award-winning Scottish stand-up comedian and podcaster. An out and proud gay woman, Susie is known for her fearlessness, honesty and authenticity when delivering her comedy. Even a heart attack hasn't slowed her down. She has received glowing praise from her comedy idol Sir Billy Connolly and was championed by Kevin Bridges during the early part of her career. She has also recently just finished recording a podcast with comedy giant Frankie Boyle and rising star Christopher McCarthy-Boyd. Not bad for someone who entered into the world of stand-up comedy in a very unconventional way. Hello, Susie, and welcome to the podcast.
How you doing? Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for agreeing to be my guest today. We're going to have so much fun, and I hope everybody at home enjoys it as well.
Absolutely.
Now, Susie, as we all know, life can throw us some curveballs, and sometimes we end up pursuing career choices that are a million miles away from what we originally envisaged ourselves doing. Your route into stand-up comedy is a very unusual one, but your reasons for trying it I found to be very moving and uplifting. Can you tell us how you first got into stand-up comedy?
So I had a mate who was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer with 18 months to live. And me and another mate, like a mutual friend, right, he said to me, we should scare ourselves, life is short. And this was back in 2010, right? And see, whenever I talk about this and I think about it, this conversation that night came about. I don't know, how old are you, Claire?
30.
30, right? So here's the thing, Claire, right? You'll have been too young for this. But life in the kind of noughties, the early 2000s, I know there was like an illegal war and all that, right? But it was pretty calm and it was pretty stable. And life was quite... And you know, it was funny because me and my mate sat and went, life's is boring, innit? Not boring, but it's very settled for most people, and most people could afford holidays and live their life. And we were comparing it to the time that we grew up, which was the 1980s, and Thatcherism, and then kind of Labour losing that 92 election, and then Blair coming in. It was all very stable for 13, 14 years. And we were like, we should do something to dare ourselves. And my mate went, you can do this stand-up comedy course where it's 8 weeks, and I think in week 7 you do a gig, and then week 8's your feedback from the gig. And I was like, right. And we done it, right? We'd done the course. It was done by Viv G. It was brilliant. And I had never stood on a stage or held a mic or spoke into a mic. And I don't even think I'd ever done karaoke or anything like that. And I'd certainly never been in a school show or a school play or anything. And I don't know why, but I just thought this would be a laugh for me and my pal. And we kind of had the view of it's something interesting to say at your funeral that you done this, right? And we were like, all right. So we went away and we done it. And I done the gig. And I remember feeling something that I'd never really felt before, this real adrenaline. And I was into sports as a kid. I played a lot of sports, played football, played rugby and stuff. And I loved them, loved my sport. I loved watching my sport. But I'd never felt this kind of thing. And it kind of made me go, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do, and this is what I want to become. I want to become a comedian. And then I had quite a good job. I was an electrical estimator, and what I chose to do was keep my job on the whole time for like 8.5 years until I could make the leap financially. Because you've got bills to pay, you've got a life to live and all that. And I certainly didn't have parents that, could just have funded me messing about a stage, going, yeah, 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 they're in the arts. Do you know what I mean? Like, because when you're working class, I think there is a thing, especially, look, I'm not going to talk for everybody, but there was certainly a thing in my house. Like, we didn't go to the theatre as a family or concerts as that. You found your own taste in music, whether that be through an older sibling or your friends. But the arts wasn't something that was particularly considered in my family home, or books even. You know what I mean? It was just like you read the paper, you watch the news, you watch the telly, that kind of thing. So for me to kind of venture into that world, probably the most natural way for me to do it was through stand-up comedy. But I certainly I didn't think I was going to make a career of it. And then I stood on that stage and I was like that. Oh, aye, this is what I'm meant to be doing. Do you know what I mean? And I just loved it. I just loved it. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I still love it. I still love it to this day. It's just the best, genuinely the best thing I've ever done. It changed my life.
It just shows you never know what's around the corner, and when you try something new, you never know what you're going to end up doing.
And it was hard. It was hard balancing the career and, it was hard balancing the career and then trying to build up that career because you're out a lot. And initially you're trying to get stage time to build up your craft.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you start to get paid a wee bit here and a wee bit there. And it's not much, you're not living off it. Do you know what I mean? You're not paying your bills off it. And then eventually you get to a point where you're maybe writing shows and selling out shows. And then you kind of go, right, I need to kind of either jump now or never jump, and you've just got to back yourself there, haven't you? You've got to back yourself and go, right, 8.5 years, I've been doing gigs around the country, I'm selling out solo shows, I'm doing well, just back yourself and go for it. And again, that's a very difficult thing to do when you're working class, in it, because there's always that fear that you'll no make it. What happens if you don't make it? There's no safety net for you, you see, if you're from a working class background. There's no safety net, there's nothing there. Do you know what I mean? So, aye, you've just got to do it. You've got to make it work.
Absolutely. And I particularly found your story very poignant, Susie, as back in 2014, I lost my Auntie Mary to ovarian cancer. And just weeks after that devastating loss, I was given the news that I was losing the bulk of my sight. Even though there's tragedy attached with your story, Susie, as with your comedy, you managed to find the humour in the darkest of situations. There was a dark humour when you teamed up with Frankie Boyle and Christopher MacArthur Boyd to record your podcast, Here Comes the Guillotine. And
They two rogues, man. They're just rogue. They're rogue, Claire. They're rogue. Claire, I would get messages if I wasn't on the podcast that week for whatever reason. I would get messages going, Susie, you need to get back on the podcast. They two have went rogue. I'm like, oh no, man, what have they done?
It's a tremendous testament to the human spirit that we are able to laugh at ourselves while we are going through life's toughest challenges. But what is it about us as human beings that gives us the ability to be able to poke fun at ourselves while we're enduring pain and sorrow in our lives?
Well, do you know, it's funny, right? Because I think there's certain types of people from certain types of ethnicity and background, right? And so I would say that the Scots and the Irish are very good at it. Because the Scots and the Irish are that kind of English kind of, if you're maybe Northern English, Irish migration kind of thing. We're very good at that. And a lot of that comes from kind of prehistoric subjugation, intergenerational trauma, that's just passed down, and poverty, right? Americans aren't very good at laughing at themselves. Do you know what I mean? They're not. They'll laugh at their respective communities, or they'll laugh at men and women and the complexities of marriage and such like. But and I think the LGBT community are very good at it, and you normally find like Jewish comedians are very good at it. So or any minority actually, Asian as well, if you're Sikh or Hindu or Muslim. And I basically think that if you've came from a kind of, and not maybe you personally, but if you've came from a kind of subjugated background, or a subjugated race, or a subjugated gender, or a subjugated kind of subculture within society, I think you can laugh at yourself a bit more. And I also think it gives you a bit of strength, right? Because there is nothing that they can do or they can say about you if you've been funnier and laughed at you. It's almost like a bit of a kind of protection belt around you. But yeah, I do think there is that. And I think it comes from, there's a lot that comes from subjugation and trauma, but also it's maybe just how we cope with it. It's a very good coping mechanism, laughter. And you can see the funny side in things. You know what I mean? You can. You've got to. Because the world's now more than ever in my lifetime, the world's a really dark place. And you've got to find the humour in that. And the humour isn't ice on the streets of America, and it's not black people being treated appallingly by police forces in the westernised world, and it's not the rollback of LGBTQ rights. It's everything, and I really feel as if we're in the foothills of fascism, and we need our arts more than ever to question these things.
Absolutely. I always say you either laugh or you cry in life, and that's
That's
with my mantra anyway.
That's it. That's it. But I do think in times like we're living through, which economically are not great for lots of people, but I think when you put on the news and you're reading the news and there's an algorithm feeding you, I think there is a bit of me that goes, no, you kind of need to be holding this up, and you need to be together, and you really need to try and fix the world a little bit by laughing at it, but not laughing at those who are the worst affected through race, gender politics, and identification. Do you know what I mean?
Laugh with.
Laugh with. No, don't laugh at. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you were speaking about your friend Paul earlier on. Did he follow you into comedy, or has he returned to a more dependable and prosaic way of making a living?
I know he was like, that's far too much, all that running about. I'm just going to enjoy my weekends, and he's absolutely fine with that. It's funny because he was always he enjoyed the performing, but he actually preferred the writing. And there's a lot of people that are like that. There's a lot of people who go, yeah, I enjoy being on stage, but I actually prefer the solitude of writing. And that's an amazing talent as well.
Definitely. And for many years, Susie, I belonged to a ladies' speakers club. And during that period of time, I learned a lot about public speaking, about voice projection, being succinct, giving eye contact to listeners, and the like. We then merged with our local male speakers club, but eventually folded as there was no wanted to join.
I know where this is going.
And it was no longer viable. For many people, the thought of public speaking is terrifying, and it is hard to imagine the TikTok generation nowadays being dragged away from their iPads, iPhones, and gaming rooms and be made to stand in front of an audience who are expecting them to be funny, challenging, and engaging as you are, Susie. 30 years ago, stand-up comedy was hailed as the new rock and roll, but due to a lot of the young people nowadays being disengaged as a result of factors such as social media, etc., is stand-up comedy as an art form in danger of dying out?
No, it's thriving. It's thriving. There's loads of people trying it. What I find fascinating is that I was in a car recently with three younger comedians, all under the age of 30, and all discussing the industry. And it was like listening to three Jimmy Cars. You know what I mean? And I kind of looked and I kind of thought there's something quite sad about that because, you're under 30, man. Go and enjoy your life. And what I have noticed is as well, not even, this is even before the TikTok and the gram generation, there's so many comedians who aren't actually funny in that sense of like funny bones, like you'd sit in the pub with them and they'd be funny, right? They'd be in a building site, they'd be funny. They are not that, right? And what I find fascinating about that is that they've kind of worked out a formula to get a reaction, and whereas they don't naturally make you laugh. Know what I mean? Like, and you go, I don't know how you've managed to build a career out of this. And they're quite structured and they're quite beige, and then they'll maybe go off on a wee kind of right wing tangent and say something controversial about women, and you're like, is that it? Is this it? So no, there's lots of people doing stand-up comedy, and Claire, I'm of a generation where we weren't told we were special, right? Our parents barely, our parents, when I was growing up, you were just there as a kid. And by the way, this isn't just me, this was everybody. You were just there. You were just there, right? As a kid, you were there. Nothing was negotiated. You were told, like, I kind of talk about this in the new show where your dad would say, go and get your jacket, we're going out, and you'd say, where are you going? Where are we going? And your dad would say, you'll find out in the car, right? Like, right? Nothing was discussed or negotiated, and you certainly weren't told you were special. You know what I mean? Like, you could have won an Olympic gold, and your mum would have been like, was the favourite no injured, right? Like, right? Whereas there seems to be a generation of young people, and I'm not getting at them, but they think that they're special, and they think that they're entitled to certain things, and they think that things should just naturally come their way. And I just go, your problem is my generation have built you up to believe that you will, if you do this, you'll get this, and that's not how life works. That is not how life works. And they're all kind of walking about going, I don't understand how I've not got this. And you go, well, because you've not worked hard enough. And if you work harder, you'll get better. And if you get better, you'll have more success. You know what I mean? As opposed to looking about and seeing who they can blame. So no, there is an absolute. There is so many people doing the stand up, and some are just. And I don't mean people starting out and stuff like that. And some just shouldn't be in a stage. You know what I mean? You're like, this is going to be a slog for you. And then there's people who take to it like a duck to water. But yeah, no, I think it's because they don't need to learn to play an instrument. You know what I mean? I think that's too much like hard work. I'll just go and stand at a microphone and talk one lot of nonsense. And it means I don't need to have crusty fingers for playing the guitar.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Make your own luck, and
And it doesn't always work either. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't always work out for you. But have a bit, like, at least put the effort in. You know, it's a bit like sitting your hires and getting a B or getting a C and saying, I'm going to go back next year and try and get an A. And you go back and you still get a B. but at least you've tried. You know what I mean? You've tried. And you've put the effort in, you've put the work in, but to just kind of look about and be annoyed at other people's success because you don't have that, it's just silly. It's silly.
As an LGBTQIA plus ally, Susie, I have spoken to many gay people over the years about the struggles that they have faced in coming out to their friends and families, and how societal changes in recent years have possibly meant that this process is a lot less stressful than what it was previously. For many millennials like myself, we struggle to comprehend how some gay people would contemplate suicide rather than come out to their friends and families. And on a previous edition of this podcast, John Amabile spoke about how horrendous it was for him to grow up gay in the Scotland of the 70s and 80s. You've been very vocal about your own story over the years, Susie, but during this period of time in your life, you had a very supportive ally and champion within your own family. Can you tell us about...
The most supportive ally and champion within my family was my nana, a Roman Catholic wee woman. She'd all the statues of the Virgin Mary with the wee turny hat for the holy water, the wee turny blue hat, right? Straight for Lourdes, she had hundreds of them. And the wee well when you were in the door, and wee prayers here, and a wee prayer here, and a wee palm for Palm Sunday here, and oh aye. My nana was born in 1920. Her parents divorced in 1936, and my nana loved me. And I adored my nana, and my nana adored me. And me being gay didn't bother her in the slightest. It really didn't. And I was so very blessed to have such a beautiful, humble, demure little Glasgow woman in my life. And she was very supportive of me because, and we need that now. We need that now. And it's really difficult, right? Because my nana, born in 1920, was a war generation. But the older generation we have now are baby boomers. And again, I talk about this in my new show, where I say, isn't it ironic that the people who, when their children and grandchildren were growing up, told them not to believe everything they read on the internet, now believe everything that they read on the internet. And my concern is that they don't have an older generation to go to. You know what I mean? That their parents, not their parents, their grandparents are actually all bigots. And they're getting away with it because, unfortunately, Claire, we are well and truly in past the foothills of fascism, and it's coming down the road. And I'm actually a patron for a charity called Scotland, and it's Time for Inclusive Education. And I'm a patron of that charity, and I go to things and I talk to young people and all that kind of stuff. And I worry for that generation. I really worry because I see the anti-trans message that's out in the world. And I was on a programme called Debate Night. And if you're not Scottish and listening to this, Debate Night's like a Scottish question time, basically. And it was the Isla Bryson sentencing day. So Isla Bryson was being sentenced, and Isla Bryson, for those who don't know, is a trans woman who, as a man, raped. And a lot of people are very suspicious of Isla Bryson's motives for being a woman, and including myself. And Isla Bryson was getting sentenced, and I had read the court order that day before I went on Debate Night. And I said, Isla Bryson's going to be put in a segregation unit. Well, actually, a Tory MSP said, there's a man walking about a women's prison. Right? And I went, right, okay. But Isla Bryson was still anatomically a man, right? And I said, yep, but Isla Bryson's going to go into a segregated unit, and then the Scottish Prison Service will decide where Isla Bryson will go, which in turn was a male prison, right? Now, my argument was that someone's son could then be somebody's daughter, and someone's daughter can then be someone's son. And the people in public office, like that MSP, hadn't bothered to read the court order. She just had fixed this image that there's a man just walking, roaming the corridors of a women's prison, which wasn't true. Right? They were in a segregated unit, as I would be put in, and you would be put in, if we had sexually assaulted a woman. Right? And my whole thing was, you've not even bothered to read the court order, but you're sitting here spouting this hate and bile. And my whole point was that people in public office must be mindful of the language, because it's stoking up hate and division. 6 weeks after that episode aired, Brianna Jai was murdered. And Brianna Jai was murdered by two young people who hated who Brianna Jai was and what Brianna Jai stood for. And Brianna Jai was a young woman. And then I later watched the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak, standing at the dispatch box with PMQs, arguing with Keir Starmer, with Brianna Jai's mother in the public gallery of our parliament, and said, "Tell us what a woman is." I mean, that's the very top of the tree, and that's what you're getting. And you think to yourself, well, if that's how they're behaving, is it any wonder people are saying and doing what they're doing? So I worry that the younger generation don't have somebody like my nana, because my nana was the last of the war generation, and now I think that generation's gone. We're now sitting with the baby boomers, and they didn't see the rise of fascism, and that's what I'm concerned about.
Absolutely. It's about leading by example.
Well, and also it's just like, why is it any of your business what someone's got in their pants? Like, why are you so fascinated by what someone's got in their pants? It's a weird thing. Like, there are certain journalists in this country who are spouting stuff out in which was once credible newspapers that you would seek out to purchase to try and get a global perspective in current affairs, who are absolutely spouting out hate and bile. And I think, how does this affect a 60-year-old man?
It's just so important that we get the message out and just try and, show the younger generations that
That it's not, and the younger generation seem to think that everybody's talking about trans. Like, you go into pubs, people are talking about it, get in a taxi, nobody's talking about it. People are talking about healthcare and education and trying to get their wee nana into a home and try to get their mum the operation that they need. And nobody's sitting going, what do you make of these puberty blockers? Do you know what I mean? But after that last season of football, nobody's caring about trans. Everybody was stressed that they're not with that. But yeah, absolutely. Leading by example and try and spread a bit of goodness in this world, because it really needs it right now. And just take a minute and try and be a bit less selfish. And even if you don't understand they, them, trans, whatever, right? If you don't understand anything like that, that's fine. But it doesn't mean to say that you don't need that you're not respectful.
Absolutely. In an interview some years ago, Susie, you spoke about how coming out at 17, you took great delight in discovering that there was this wonderful, vibrant, supportive, non-judgmental gay community just waiting to enfold you in its arms, which helped you enormously to come to terms with the journey that you were about to undertake. You had a fabulous time, first going to Delmonico's and then working there. But also in this interview, you spoke about how the general public's acceptance of gay people had somewhat diluted the sense of community you once had, and the feeling that you belonged to a team had somewhat diminished. A close family friend says that he still longs for the days where the gay community was more cloak and dagger, where straight people looked blankly when they heard Polari and there was a frisson of danger in the air. Is this just nostalgia, or is there still an element within the gay community that longs to be on the margins of society?
Yeah, I think there is, and it's not about the erosion of the equality that we've received. And I think there is still a bit where you go to certain places, not so much in Glasgow, because it's quite a small scene in Glasgow. I mean, it's probably the correct size for the size of the city, right? And the equality that we've got is wonderful. And I say this as a Section 28 kid. But what I would say is you can go to Canal Street in Manchester, or, there's an element of gay tourism. Um, and I'm all about inclusion. I very much believe in living in a multicultural, diverse society, and I think we are better for it. And I'm all about experiencing that, and I think it's a good thing to do. But I don't want to go into a gay bar where there's 15 hen nights and I've got women thinking that I'm going to fire into them, and you think, oh, hen, no, when there's dogs in the street. And you can get that, you will get that. I mean, recently I actually had an MP say to me, well, as a feminist, as if I'm not a feminist, and I'm going, wait a minute, I'm a working class Roman Catholic lesbian. How much, how much more credentials do I need to be a feminist, right? And I do think there's an element of that with some women when they enter the gay scene with their gay male friends. But I've never been one. I mean, in that gay community you were talking about, the family friend there, within that community, there was also a sense of division between gay men and lesbians. Oh, it's a women's bar, it's a man's bar. I've never subscribed to that, never in my life, because as a community, your strength is in your unity. Always. It's no different from a unionised workforce, right? But what I do feel is there's a generation, round about the millennials. I mean, there's millennials who never realised that homosexuality was illegal in Scotland till 1980. And I'm like, have you never read a book? Never heard the Harvey Milk? Never heard of Sally Ride? You know, don't understand that we had newspaper headlines saying EastBenders, that we had the Sun newspaper trying to buy tickets, plane tickets for gay activists, a one-way ticket to Norway. And there's a generation that have had no struggle. And that's wonderful, right? That they can come out to their parents and they can work in any industry they want. And there's laws to protect them so that they're protected. And that's amazing. And people can live an honest and true and open life. And that in itself saves lives. However, where we are now in the political discourse and the disinformation that's online, and what presidents and prime ministers have said and are saying. I mean, there was RFK Jr. Now, I love the Kennedys, right? And I loved Bobby Kennedy. There's RFK Jr. going, we're going to declare war on fat gay kids. And I thought, well, I wouldn't, because if there's one kids that know how to punch, it's fat gay ones. Because one, we've been bullied, and two, we're fat, we can't run. Right? So, I mean, if you're going to declare war, I wouldn't declare war on names, right? And I do genuinely believe that we need that unity, and we are one, we're a community, and it doesn't matter if you're L to the G to the B to the T to the Q to the A and everything else in that flag. I do not care. There will be a multitude of things we don't agree on, but there's one thing that binds us together, and it is so important that when we are listening to people like Robert Kenyon, who's standing in the Makerfield by-election, or Kimmy Badenoch talking about gender, and Rishi Sunak. I mean, you'll notice it's all right-wing parties, right? West Streeting, there was another one. When I am watching this, And I'm saying, no, man, we need to get together. And this year for Pride, as part of, I always go in the march with the Thai guys who we spoke about earlier. But I have got a group of mates coming, straight and gay, and we'll be out in that march because we are firmly in the foothills of fascism and we need to be together. And do you know what? We brought about change before and we'll bring about change again, and this will go full cycle. But I don't know where the right wing is going. And the fact that there are now people thinking that the Reform Party are a bit too liberal and they're now going to the Restore Party. So how far right are we going to go? Do you know what I mean? And that's my concern. And I'm not marching for me. I'm marching for the future generations to make sure that they never had to endure what I've done. And it means the world to me to be a patron of that charity, because I don't know if many people know this, but Scotland is the first country in the world, this wee country, this wee northern European country of 6 million people that's hanging about in the northern Atlantic and the North Sea. It's a pimple on the arse of Europe, has become the very first country in the world to have LGBT inclusive education on their statute books. And that's amazing. And I'll never know, and we'll never know as an organisation with Thai, how many lives we've saved. We'll never know because we'll never be able to put a number on it. But what we do know is that lives will be saved.
Fantastic. It's so important, and it's just amazing that our country is at the forefront of that. It's so important.
And by the way, that has been 8 to 10 years in the making, and they boys have been in government committees, they've been cross-party, they have been pragmatists in speaking at the very top of power to advisors, it didn't matter your political party, they got on board and they got you on side, and this is in our statute books, and Scotland will be a better country because of that.
Fantastic. And returning to stand-up comedy, Susie, in an interview previously, you spoke of your love for the man who was once voted the greatest stand-up comedian of all time, Glasgow's very own Sir Billy Connolly. But who else were your influences in the early part of your career as you sought to discover your onstage style and identity?
Do you know, comedy's always been a big thing in my life, as has music, and it's because I had an older brother. So my brother's 8 years older, so you have that natural kind of by osmosis thing. And my brother left the house at 16. He was away out the house at 16, and I would see him maybe 3-4 times a year. But he would come home with Reeves and Mortimer and Absolutely and Bill Hicks and Dennis Leary and the Stone Roses and Depeche Mode and all that, right? So you just consume all that. But equally, I always used to go home on a Friday night after primary school, and it would be Cheers and the Golden Girls or Roseanne for those American sitcoms. And then conversely, I would beat my grands on a Saturday night, and it would be Lily Savage. You know, remember when a guy could wear a dress on television and host a quiz show and nobody bothered, right? Nobody thought, oh my God, my child's been radicalised because Paul O'Grady's advertising Pretty Polly tights, right? Right, mental, right? And I think, so for me, I mean, obviously Billy, right? But I love Alan Carr, and I've worked with Alan, and he's a sweetheart. I love Alan, Kevin, Frankie, right? All of that. But obviously, like your Elaine C. Smiths, your Karen Dunbars, your Dorothy Pauls, you know, the people that you watched with your nana, the people that you sat down and watched on the telly that had been in the telly your whole life, you know? So the thing is, stand up. You know, I was very fortunate that I got to do Have I Got News for You, and the host was Jo Brand, right? Now, Jo Brand was the first woman I ever seen stand with a mic and a light and just do what I do. Victoria Wood was not a stand-up per se because she was so multifaceted in songwriting, musical comedy, sitcom writing, sketch writing, acting. Tremendous. Kathy Burke, a comedy actress, right? And I've loved to have seen Kathy Burke do stand up, you know. So the thing for me is that comedy is such a broad church that my influences are very wide and very kind of, they can be really quite out there, from the Smelling Reeves and Mortimer to the League of Gentlemen to absolutely to the Mighty Bush to Dorothy Paul, Joan Rivers. Do you know what I mean? Polly Grady or Lily Savage, as it was the inception of Lily Savage. So, but if we're just going with a mic and a light and being funny on a stage and being a bit of a clown, I'll always be Billy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He is a legend and he is basically the greatest stand-up to come out of Scotland, really. You know,
Greatest Scot, the greatest Scot, the greatest Briton. Listen, the greatest ever. That's it. He is to me what Maradona and Pele are to football. You know?
he's fabulous. But there's so many, as you say, there's so many amazing comedians, and we're so lucky here in Scotland. And that's what's so wonderful about going to Breaking the News, is you see new comedians coming through all the time, and it's just wonderful to see that.
Yeah, yeah.
And platform that as well. So it's definitely fantastic. And I always marvel at how the great stand-up comedians nowadays are able to come up with fresh new material for their routines. In days gone by, stand-up comedy was mostly joke-based, with many of the jokes being rehashed or recycled ad nauseum. But with your more observational style of comedy, Susie, you have to be more creative and innovative with your routines. But what is the inspiration behind your comedy as a whole? And is it difficult to keep coming up with fresh new material consistently?
I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, they're right. So this will probably go in the next show, right? But like, just a wee observation. So my comedy's always about my life. It's always about my life and then my views and what's going on in the world. And me and my partner we were in Belfast, and I said, "What do you want to do the day?" Because I had the whole day off. I says, "Because I want to be tourists." I went, "Right, well, you've got two choices, terrorism or the Titanic," right? So we chose the Titanic. And we got down to the Titanic, and it was a bit like a day like today. It was sunny and then overcast, then rain, then sun. And it was really muggy. And we got down to the front door of the Titanic, and she took off her jacket and she had a New York t-shirt on. And I was like, "Are you joking? You can't go into you can't go into the Titanic Museum with a New York t-shirt. Don't be bonkers." I was like, I mean, at least you've offended everybody in Belfast with that. Do you know what I mean? At least you've not just... So there's stuff like that that you can put in, and you can then kind of beef it up as a comedian and know how to kind of make that a bit, you know. But yeah, my life, and then my kind of views in the world, and certainly kind of going. I mean, there was a thing in a previous show where I spoke about how the Tories tried to bring back conscription and national service, and I went, "You're going to send a generation of young adults to war who have never had to walk to school." Do you know what I mean? And so it's when you take these things and you kind of go, "That's ridiculous." And I think that's the beauty of it. But the only reason that we can do what we do is because Billy done what he done. Because Billy didn't do jokes. Billy used his own physicality. Billy told great stories. Billy would make mental stuff up that was just funny. And that there in itself is why modern stand-up comedy is the way it is.
Absolutely. He definitely was at the forefront, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and a very important thing about Billy, and this should always be remembered, that if you go back and listen, because there's a lot of LPs, or if you go back and watch, what you'll discover is all Billy's jokes stand the test of time. There is no racial discrimination. There is no sexism. There is no homophobia. It's just daft, silly, funny stories. And it's no mother-in-law jokes. And that, to me, showed you the character of the man that in the 1970s he could really have pushed that and done the old mother-in-law and the auntie, just all that. And he chose not to.
Mhm.
He chose not to be that guy because clearly in his head, he didn't see the world like that. And that is why not only is he a world-class comic who could walk into any room and do what he done, he's also fundamentally a good man.
Hear, hear.
Mhm.
And after working in Delmonico's, Susie, which was more fun than work for you, you then began your serious working career, first working as an electrician before taking the significant step and becoming an estimator. Both
Hmm.
jobs carry a huge amount of responsibility, but equally importantly, pay well too. There is nothing I can think of in the world of electrical maintenance or estimating that could possibly lead to a career in stand-up comedy. But was there a hidden or suppressed performer within you just waiting to burst out? And what was the
No,
main driver behind you getting
there
into
really wasn't. Or I was just the class clown. Do you know what I mean? I was just the class clown. I was always full of carry on and nonsense. I've always been that. But there was never this. And it's funny because my brother, because he's so much older than me, he used to come in for primary school and I'd be putting on a show for my nana, right? And doing this and doing that. But I never, and I don't, and my mum and dad would say, oh, you should be in the stage. But equally, if I'd went into my mum and dad went, I'm away to drama college, they'd be like, what, on a Saturday morning, away and get a job, right? So I never ever considered it, never ever considered it, never thought, never was never in an amateur dramatics group or a choir or in a band or anything like that. I just never ever considered that. It just never came in my radar. So that's why it's a bit mental that I do what I do.
Absolutely. I mean, you could have ended up becoming a journalist, a rugby player, a missionary, or even a nun. It's crazy how that can happen, really. So
Aye, that's it. That's it. So aye, and it's aye, because my generation were kind of taught you go there, you pick your career, you do your career, you buy a house, you get married, you have babies, and that's your life. And then you realise there's a whole other world there, but you don't need to subscribe to.
absolutely, absolutely. And in July of 2024, Susie, while you were touring in England, you had a myocardial infarction, or to the layperson, you had a heart attack. But
Yes.
to our relief, well, in true Susie McCabe fashion, you bounced back very quickly, returning to your hectic schedule. After losing the bulk of my sight back in 2014, Susie, I was carried along in a whirlwind of family and friends coming to visit me, people taking me places, joining support groups, been taken to appointments, been given aids to help me mobilise, been taken out to familiarise myself with an environment that I had to adapt to with limited vision. But when the maelstrom of emotions subside and you are faced with the prospect of living your life differently, that's when many of the emotional and psychological problems can end up coming to the surface. But was there any anger, bitterness, emotional pain, or anxiety that came about as a result of you having to come to terms with the fact that you had such a traumatic event happen to you at the age of only 44?
No, no. I just kind of went, I don't know if it's a Scottish thing. I don't know if it was a family thing, but I just went, oh, hi, we all knew it was coming. I don't know. No, I just looked at it in the sense of going, you've been lucky. And Matt, I mean, obviously, in comparison to yourself, Claire, your whole life would have changed dramatically. And again, like that whole having to actually map out your life to function, right? And that, I mean, as much as with your eyesight, losing that wasn't meaning that you were losing your living life, as it were. Your whole life's ultimately changed through that. Whereas my life, I've went, oh man, I was lucky. But you know, worse things happen. I got a message the other day that somebody I went to school with passed away with cancer. And I'm just like, well, you know, what's your choice? You know what I mean? And I think we've all got a barcode. And I think when you're hitting your sell-by date, you'll know, and you'll be fun to whatever, or maybe doing, in my case, who knows, being a wee, you know, lesbian. I'll maybe go down the way or up the way. I'm not quite sure what way yet, but I think for me, yeah, you just go, listen. And what has happened is I've went, no, life's for the living, and I'm going to book that holiday. Like, so just now, I'm going, let's get an Airbnb. Let's stay somewhere cheap in Rio. I've got a flight voucher I can use. I'm like, let's go to Rio next year because it'll be amazing. And I would, you know, you wouldn't think about doing that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, do you want to go for pints some more after your gig? Aye, because you know what? I might not have been here to have those pints. Do you want to meet me for a coffee or go for lunch? Aye, because I might not have been here to go for that coffee or go for that lunch. So there's two ways I can look at it. Oh my God, I've had a heart attack and I need to make sure that I'm all right. Or I go, I've had a heart attack, I'm all right. I'm going to go and live my life a wee bit more to the fuller. I'm going to go to that night out. I'm going to go to that party. No, I'm not going to take that gig because I've been invited to an evening reception at a wedding and I'm going to go to the wedding. And I think that's where my perspective changed, that life is for the living and life is for short. And, you know, I had a really difficult couple of years there after the heart attack. My marriage ended 6 months after that. And then 7 months after that, my dad died. So, and it was a really tough time because essentially, I was of no fixed address. I was staying at a mate's and all the stuff that goes on with that. So I think, you know, I just kind of go, well, do you know what? Life's for the living. Go and live it as best as what you can, as best as what you can afford, and just embrace all that comes with it, and that includes the good and the bad.
Absolutely, it's the best way to be. I mean, try and live present. Don't think too far ahead. Just enjoy today because, as you say, you never know. That's the thing. You just
Never know.
And
You never know.
that's the way I've kind of took it after what happened to me anyway.
Yeah.
There's so many times there's people are like, you're looking forward to this, you're looking forward to that. I'm like, well, I am, but I'm not thinking about it until
Aye.
I'm there. So,
Until it's there. Aye,
yeah.
because I've got other stuff to think about first. And I've got other stuff that I'm looking forward to because I'm filling up my life doing stuff and getting experiences. Because you know what? See, when I leave this world, or see when I'm sitting and I've lost a bit of my faculties, I want to remember that holiday. I want to remember that time me and my mate went to Sieges for a weekend. I don't want to remember that I'm sitting there shitting myself. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, I know.
And I think we don't know how long we've got, so when you're here, make the very most of it.
Absolutely. And as someone who listened religiously to the Here Comes the Guillotine podcast in its almost 2-year run, Susie, I always laughed when you and Frankie returned to a popular topic of yours on the podcast, what Dara Breen called his cultural Catholicism. Dara said that Catholicism permeates every aspect of his life and that he still identifies as a Catholic who just happens not to believe in God. But are you still open to the existence of God? Are you what Michael Palin says, an atheist with doubts? Or have past Catholic attitudes towards the gay community created an insurmountable barrier, which means that your differences between you and your old faith are irreconcilable? Having watched you doing your coming of age show, however, I think the ship has probably sailed on that.
So Catholicism taught me a lot. And I actually say this, sometimes I do leavers addresses, and I say this a lot. I say, you know, anyone having a relationship and having a faith, sometimes I get quite jealous of it because I think, wouldn't it be wonderful to have something to turn to in difficult times that gives you comfort like that, right? And I just don't have that. However, what I will say is, I was educated in the Catholic education system, and it was a good education system. But I was also taught certain things within that, like be kind to others, work hard because you have to work hard. Work hard, be kind to others, be kind to those that are less fortunate than you, and be the very best you can be as a person. Not success, not what cars in your driveway, or how nice your kitchen is. As a person, as a human being, as a as that, and that's a very that kind of applies to all religions, and that's what I took from my religion. And I say to the kids when I go to the leavers, if I do leavers addresses at my old school, I say to them, and I tell them that I'm an out lesbian, and I say to them now, I don't care what your relationship with God is. However, you have been fortunate enough to be brought up within a faith that when that faith is practiced within the confines of the Mass, it has taught you, it's taught you to self-evaluate. It's taught you mindfulness, right? Because the Mass, I mean, a Roman Catholic Mass is quite therapeutic, right? If you just tune out and do the bits that's quite chanty and sit there, and then there's maybe about 3 or 4 times in a Catholic Mass that you self-respect, that you self-evaluate, that you self-examine, and you get that time and that meditative thing about that. And I say to young people, you're living in a constant world of crisis because the smartphones know, the internet's not the problem, the smartphone's the problem. And everything's a crisis. Even if you look at this Makerfield by-election, the coverage it's getting, right? You think the council elections in England, never in my life were council elections so important. But regardless of what government's in, we're just going from one crisis to another. Right? Oh, there's a crisis. Oh, there's a crisis. Oh, Trump said this. Trump said this. Trump said this. And these kids have grown up in this digital world where they can't switch that off. So I tell them to try and have 15 minutes a day to just block out the noise. I say, try and have 15 minutes with your phone, just in your bedroom. Because our way of soothing would have been music, to go into your bedroom and put on a record or put on a tape or put on a CD and play it and listen to it. That's what you done. And that was quite meditative. So I think there is a thing that culturally, am I still a Roman Catholic? Yeah, I probably am. What I don't believe in is the dogma, right? But equally, I think if I was a Buddhist, or if I was Sikh, or Hindu, or Muslim, or Jewish, those faiths would have taught me all those same things. And I would try to have lived my life by them. And I think that's all you can do. But yeah, culturally, am I still Catholic? Yeah, because there's a thing in you when you're a Catholic that's instilled in you that it doesn't matter how well you do, you need to pass that forward. As much as what Catholicism is viewed as a very conservative religion in the small c sense of conservatism, it's also quite a compassionate religion. And it's also a religion that, and when I'm talking about the religion, again, I'm not talking about the dogma, I'm not talking about Rome, I'm not talking about the Vatican, I'm talking about the practicing of being a Catholic in your everyday life. It isn't about prayers, it's about just trying to live your life as a good person. And some people listen to this and might go, well, that's not just being a Catholic. I understand that. But it is something that's instilled in you. And you know what? I'm kind of grateful that I'm what I am.
Absolutely. Because as you say, it's not just about, the religious side of things, it's just about your morals. And
Aye,
it's like tribal as well. It's quite a tribal thing.
It is quite a tribal thing, and you get that within all religions. If you look at the Muslim religion, you've got the Sunni and the Shiites and all that kind of stuff, and it is quite tribal. But there's also a beautiful thing, right? That if I was in New Zealand right now, and barring the time difference, if I wanted to go to a mass, I could, and I
Mhm.
could take part in that mass, and I would know what was going on in that mass because mass is mass.
Mm,
It's the same order, even if
mhm,
it's spoken in three different languages, still
mhm,
the same mass.
mhm,
So yeah, there's something quite comforting in that, I think. And I think, yeah, sorry, as I was going to say there, Catholicism is viewed as a very conservative religion, but it's also a very socialist religion
mhm.
as well. So it is a bit of a dichotomy. And if you look at places in South America, or if you look at Southern Europe, there is a real kind of community thing that's bred from that in predominantly Catholic countries. So for me, Catholicism is a religion, like most faiths, I suppose, that has a conservatism to it. And you can go all the way to the right in that. But there is also a socialism to it. And I think you really witness that. And I mean, it's something that's certainly instilled in you within the education, but you really witness that in kind of South America and such like. So, it's a really good thing. Culturally, I'm still a big old pape.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And staying with cultural Catholicism, Susie, you've spoken many times over the years about how one of the most significant moments in your life was your discovery of the classic redemption movie, The Blues Brothers. As
Was that?
someone who lives and breathes music, what was it about the Blues Brothers that had such a dramatic effect on the young Susie McCabe's mind?
It was the music. So I'd broken my leg, and I was in the house one night, and my dad put it on for me. It was on the video, and I was lying in the sofa with a broken leg, and I watched this movie, and the music of it was amazing, right? And then obviously you don't know. I think it was about 8 or 9. You don't know that that's Aretha Franklin. You don't know that's Ray Charles. You don't know that's James Brown. Do you know what I mean? You don't know any of that. But what I did know is that I really loved the music and I loved John Belushi. But there is also something so profoundly funny about nuns, right? And the nun just like leathering them. Do you know what I mean? And then the way that they absolutely like totally discredited the Nazis with this kind of homoerotic relationship and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Because you're like, aye, that makes sense. All the men in uniforms, aye, that makes total sense. So that it was brilliant. It was so well written. It was great, and the music has definitely stayed with me my whole life.
Mhm, absolutely.
It's amazing, and John Belushi. I mean, Dan Aykroyd's great in it. Carrie Fisher as well. Da-na-na-na-na. But it's just such a well written, and the rednecks and laughing at the rednecks, and it's a great. Honestly, if you've not seen the Blues Brothers, go and put it on, and you will just chuckle your wee heart out.
Mm, absolutely. And just recently, you flabbergasted us all, Susie, by appearing on Celebrity Mastermind. The
Yes, I did.
shiny opposition, may I add. By the way, your topic of choice was Miss Margaret Hilda Roberts, a humble greengrocer's daughter from Grantham.
It was. Who then went on to absolutely trash the country. Even Clive Myrie went to me, Margaret Thatcher. I think you need to know your enemy. But yeah, no, and I won it, and it was amazing, and it was nice for to have a trophy in Scotland. So it was nice for Margaret Thatcher to give a trophy back. And the prize fund that I won, that went to the hospital that saved my life with a heart attack. And it was nice for Margaret Thatcher, 36 years after leaving Downing Street, to give money back to the NHS. Eh? How's that, Maggie? How's that worked out for you?
Every cloud. What was it that made you want to pick Mrs. Thatcher when you could have
So
picked other historical figures such
I
as
did, I did, I done the Kennedys, but people had done them. But I picked Thatcher, so I know quite a lot about Margaret Thatcher because I find her a fascinating figure. I don't particularly like her or like her politics, but there's no doubt that she shaped the latter part of the 20th century in global politics,
mm,
and she fundamentally changed this country, not for the better, I hasten to add, but she fundamentally changed it. And, you know, when everybody now, if somebody gives you your gas and somebody gives you your electricity and it's two separate companies, you know, you're a consumer of Thatcherism, aren't you? That's it. So there's a lot that I really don't agree with, but she did get to the top of that party when she shouldn't have, and she did change the face of the world. I don't agree pretty much with anything that she done, but what I will say is that as a historical figure, she can't be underestimated. And to explain the world we live in today, if you understand Thatcherism, you'll understand modern Britain.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose you've got to see it from all sides of the divide, really, even if you have your own political views.
Yeah, and you know, like you could go. I mean, I remember my parents putting money aside for the miners, but you know, Scargill never had a ballot for that vote for those miners to strike. You know, and that's quite an important thing. And then the police at Ordgrave and how the police behaved at the Battle of Ordgrave, and she sent them in as bully. I mean, terrible, absolutely terrible. But you know, all things come to an end, good and for bad. And she came to an end, and it was a pretty brutal bleeding by her party. But yeah, and you have to. I mean, the country, she sold off all the family silver, and I could talk about days about it, but I would also say that is the country better off for it morally? Absolutely not. But I would also say that things that have happened now with regards to uh, or regards to business enterprise and deregulation, which you know means it's illegal. With regards to that kind of stuff, she ruined the country. She really ruined the country. And yeah, there's a lot to answer for. But now, if she was in power and Thames Water went, we've paid out 100 million in shares, but we need 100 million worth of repairs, so we're going to put your bills up. Thatcher would never have stood for that. She wouldn't have, because she believed in the consumer and she believed in free market enterprise. And I'm not saying that she didn't sell things off at a song and all that, but even she would be like, nah, can't you do that? And if I had to ask you, Boris Johnson or Margaret Thatcher, who would you rather was in charge during COVID? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I know it's a tough choice, right? It's a bit like going, oh, Hitler or Mussolini, but that's it, isn't it?
Definitely. And watching you doing your coming of age show, Susie, which I have to add is a must see, by the way. The reaction you got in the Kings the night that we saw you was absolutely fantastic.
What
And
night were you there? Were you there the Friday or the Saturday?
the Friday night we were there, yeah.
It was a great show, great show.
Loved it. And there was actually times that I was struggling to breathe. I was laughing so hard. But watching you doing your coming of age show, it strikes me that you are very self-deprecating about almost every aspect of your life. Although I'm registered blind, so I can't comment on any physical aspects of your appearance. But as someone who appears to be super confident, is adaptable, who can boast about having success in various diverse careers, is a deep thinking, intelligent woman, is being self-deprecating and self-effacing a good comedy tool to use? Or do you generally struggle with insecurity or self-image problems?
Not so much self-image now, because I just go, whatever. But yeah, insecurity, imposter syndrome, yeah. I think that comes from being a woman and being working class. I think that's where that originates from. Most women I know who have had successful careers have struggled with imposter syndrome. The self-deprecating thing, yeah, I don't trust comedians if they don't self-deprecate. See, if I watch a comedian and I never see them self-deprecate, I think, nah, you're a prick.
Yeah.
And it's normally men, to be fair, that can't self-deprecate, because they try and do this kind of high-status comedy, and you're just like, oh, this is exhausting. Just self-deprecate, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, it's all right to laugh at yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important, and especially in the modern world, it is important to laugh at yourself.
Yeah, and there's so many men just can't do it. Just
Mm-hmm.
won't do it, can't do it, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
If it's your job
Yeah.
to make people laugh,
Mm-hmm.
learn to self-deprecate. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? If it is your actual job, why not self-deprecate yourself instead of having a go at women or, you know, minorities?
And Susie, you've spoken many times over the years about how you think that Glasgow is the funniest place on earth. The city of
Aye.
Glasgow and its satellites have produced some of the greatest ever comedians to grace the planet. Too many to mention. In fact, watch or try ordering a half pint of lager in a Glasgow pub routine, and
Aye,
you will
aye,
see why Glasgow richly deserves that accolade. But what
yeah.
has changed Glasgow from its no means city tab to this cultural oasis which annually hosts the Glasgow International Comedy Festival and has produced so many homegrown comedians?
I think Glasgow's always had that. It's always had that thing about it. It's always had that thing about it. Where you have working class, right? Where you've got once an industrialised city that's now post-industrial, where you have migration, whether it be, you know, Irish, Pakistani, Polish, Indian, it doesn't matter. Where you have that cultural melting pot, working class, former docks, heavy industry, all that kind of stuff. There is that art that's produced is gritty, and that's all right. That's all right. Because Glasgow hasn't just produced amazing comedians, it's produced amazing musicians and songwriters and literature. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that comes from the grit of what's round about you. Because the thing with Glasgow is you can walk down a beautiful tree-lined street and turn the corner and walk 100 yards and be in a very different street. And people living like that, cheek by jowl, brings a certain amount of realism to everyone's life. And that's very, very important.
And some of the greatest comedy actors of all time, Susie, have been very open and candid over the years about their inability to be funny without the aid of a script. Frankie Howerd and Rowan Atkinson are two classic examples of this type of comedian. You, on the other hand, seem to have funny bones, and when you're expected to be funny, you're able to be funny without any issue. You were pretty much in on the ground floor as a panellist on BBC Scotland's hit comedy panel show, Breaking the News, but you've also appeared on some of the nation's most loved television and radio programmes, such as Just a Minute, Have I Got News for You, Frankie Boyle's New World Order, and many others. Not forgetting your aforementioned podcast, Here Comes the Guillotine. But is it difficult, Susie, to be funny off the cuff? And has there been times when you've told a joke and you felt as if it's not landed well with an audience?
Hey, I mean, there are times and days like that. I mean, like yesterday though, I went up, was doing a gig yesterday, and my first half hour was just talking to the audience about stuff that I hadn't written, but just stuff that had happened, and just had a right carry on with them about it. So it wasn't scripted, it was just things that had happened in the past few weeks, and I had a wee chat with them, and we just had a pure carry on about it. And then I went in and done some stuff for the new show that I was running out. So, I mean, when you go onto a stage, that's it, innit? Stage and a microphone, just having a carry on.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant.
That's great. Now, Susie, in preparation for this podcast, I actually got in touch with a very good friend of yours, Des McLean, to dish
Ah,
you. As a trustworthy and loyal friend, Des had nothing but lovely things to say about you. Although he did ask me to get you to tell the story about a beautiful sunny day in lockdown when you and Des were double booked to do gigs in both Arica and Lochgilphead.
I knew you were going to say this. As soon as you said McLean, oh my God. So, during lockdown, we were doing beer garden gigs, and we'd done this gig at the Loch Long Hotel, right on Loch Long, just as you go in the bend, right? And then we were going up to Lochgilphead to do a gig at the Grey Gull. And we done this gig, and Lochgilphead's it's very earthy, you know, it's very kind of, a lot of people were kind of hippies and stuff like that. And we done this gig. And then the two of us were just sitting having a pint. It was a beautiful Scottish summer's day. There was little boats in the water. There was hills. It was picture postcard Scotland, right? And we were sitting, we were having a pint. We'd had our dinner, and we came out. We just watched the world go by. And then these 4 Glasgow women came out, right? Only be the pensioners in their minibus, and they go, "Is it all right if we sit down?" While simultaneously sitting down, right? So they sit down. And then they're like, aye, we're on a tour. We're going to open the morning. We've got a wee minibus. That wee guy's our wee Polish bus driver. Right? I mean, there's a lot, all right. And this one went, he's no bad looking. They were all pensioners, right? I went, no bad. She went, oh, but he's married with 3 wains. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. And this woman just, she lit a Super King cigarette, took a massive draw of it and went, but what's a slice off a loaf? Honestly, Des was holding on to me going, this is my fiancé. Oh, what a laugh, man. What a laugh. I thought Des was going to need to put the wardrobe up against the bedroom door, man. She's going to come in to try and get you. He went, I know, and I went, well, I tell you what's worse, Des. What if she thinks I'm a boy as well?
Well, he actually says that you spend a lot of time discussing life's most important issues, such as what is the meaning of life, what is the nature of reality, and can the existence of God be proven or disproven? So he did say that.
And the Celtic, that's what else we talk about.
Brilliant.
Wild.
Brilliant. Now, Susie, we've now came to the part of the podcast that I like to call the quickfire round of questions.
Hit me.
So question 1, do you have any tattoos or piercings that we should know about?
I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tattoos.
Wow.
So on my back, I've got a space and time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the Milky Way with a pocket watch bursting. On my left wrist, I've got self-made written. Mm-hmm. On my upper thigh, on the side, on one leg, I have a Celtic cross, because I love a Celtic cross. On the other leg, I have a compass with the longitude and latitude of what would have been my nana's address.
Right.
I've got Billy Connolly, but Billy Connolly is the self-portrait of Billy Connolly that he done for himself, that they put on the Billy Connolly Spirit of Glasgow Award. And then I have got 3 Celtic symbols on the top bits of both arms. So I've got 2 in one arm and 1 in the other.
That's a lovely touch. And tell us one thing about you that we don't know.
I cannot swim. Scared of it. No for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what advice would you give to your younger self about becoming a stand-up comedian?
It's going to be all right. Calm down. You've got this.
Mm-hmm. And where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Honestly, I've got no idea. I don't plan that far ahead because you never know what's around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we like to end the podcast on a bit of a lighter note. So I would like to ask you, Susie, what is your porn star name? And for anyone who's new to the podcast, it is the first name of your pet, your first ever pet, teamed up with your mum's maiden surname.
My name is Robbie Macaulay. Makes this sound a bit porny, doesn't it? Robbie Macaulay with a big dongy.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Susie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you as my guest today on Clara in Conversation, and thank you for agreeing to come on the podcast.
No bother at all. Look after yourself, and I'll see you at a gig soon, pal. All right?
Thank you very much.
Take it easy. See you later.
And Susie has just finished touring her Best Behaviour tour, but you can still see Susie at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe this year doing her coming of age show, which as I said earlier on, is a must-see. She also can be heard on Breaking the News, Off the Ball and Fighting Talk at any given time. And also, if you haven't heard Here Comes the Guillotine, I would highly recommend you go back and listen to it. It's still
when they start that Lord of the Rings chat, that's nothing to do with me. I'm not having it. Not having it. Alright, Claire, see you later. Bye, pal.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
For an audio treat. Clara in conversation just for you. Clara's chats are something new. Your spirit rises with every guest. Human stories at their best. Stories with love, hope, and mystery. Every word is a symphony. Sit back, Clara has the beat. You are in for an audio treat. Clara in conversation just for you. Clara's chats are something new. Your spirits rises with every guest. Human story.